Hey guys, what's up and welcome to a new Tesla update video. So today, as per usual, let's go over Tesla stock, let's go over the market and figure out what is happening and what we can expect moving forward. So yeah, with all that being said, if you enjoyed the video, as usual, don't forget to hit the like button. This is not financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor. And of course, my membership section on YouTube is live for just $3 a month. The link is down below in the description of the video. You can access all my intraday thoughts, posts, updates, technical analysis, options flow, etc. on Tesla and sometimes other stocks as well. Yeah, for just $3 a month. So that's something you find interesting to have, I guess, at your disposal. Maybe help you trade or whatever. Definitely check it out. That link is below. Would love to have you there. But jumping into a Tesla closing the day up ever so slightly, up about 0.5%, we'll say, closing at almost $253 per share, which compared to the market is roughly in line with the market, for instance, right? I mean, we have QQQ up 0.25%, so Tesla being up about just over 0.5% pretty much makes sense, right? So it kind of, it just makes sense, really. QQQ also, by the way, making new all-time highs, which is, this market's just, this is truly, this is a very interesting market we're in, but nonetheless, right, money to be made. Now, what is Tesla, what's the next step for Tesla here, right? Where is it going to go next? How's today's candle, right? Can we finally retrace, or is there just more room to the upside? Let's talk about that, and I'll give you my thoughts, of course, as per usual. So let me go ahead and remove this for now, bring out my market bias, right? So I want to just, obviously state things as I always have, and I will continue saying, right? Again, as it stands right this very moment on the daily chart, Tesla is very overbought on almost every single metric you can ask for, right? It's extremely overbought on my bands. It's extremely overbought on the stochastic, on the RSI. MACD, I don't know if I would say MACD is necessarily overbought. I mean, maybe it's a little bit overbought, but it's seen higher levels. Let's just say that it's definitely seen higher levels, but it is really far away from the red line, so it's showing a pretty much pretty large disparity there. But MACD, I don't really use MACD for overbought levels. I just honestly use it for flips, really. But RSI and stochastic definitely overbought, and bands are overbought. Now again, and I said this before, when Tesla breaks out, it'll probably stay overbought for an extended period of time. That's exactly what's happening. I'll be honest, a little bit more than I expected in terms of how elevated it is, but nonetheless, it is staying overbought for an extended period of time. And again, just because it's overbought, it doesn't mean it has to pull back now, tomorrow, whatever, even necessarily this week, right? All it means is the fact that, think of it as like warning signs, right? Because again, these overbought indicators, they are kind of delayed, like they're lagging indicators essentially, right? They don't necessarily mean that the correction's tomorrow. It just means that we're starting to enter some pretty euphoric levels, and this is usually where you want to take some caution, right? Yeah, there's always room for more upside, and the momentum is still obviously strong and bullish, but when you get to these elevated euphoric levels, that's where you start taking a little bit of caution, right? A little bit of, you don't want to get too greedy with it, right? At least in my opinion, just my thoughts, of course, right? And that's kind of what that means. Now, again, because like I said, it is a lagging indicator, it does mean that at some point we will get a correction, right? Whether it's a severe correction or a quote unquote mini correction, that's of course still, remains to be seen, but it will happen, right? At some point, Tesla will correct, and this move will slow down, and we will come back down and retest prior levels and turn them back into support. That, of course, will happen, at least in theory. It should. Obviously, there's always a chance that it pulls an NVIDIA and pretty much just skyrockets for the most part, but in theory, for a healthy movement, you probably want to see that. So let's talk about all that together right now. So let's go to the weekly chart really quickly here, right? Obviously, we had the first day of the week, but the red line, which is that kind of final boss resistance, we peaked our head above it last week, and so far today, and so far the weekly candle is showing us coming back down to that resistance level, or I guess was resistance level, now technically a support. And essentially, at least as of right now, there's still a lot of time in the week, of course, right? We still have a full week ahead of us. A lot of stuff this week too. We have a bunch of earnings coming out. We have CPI. I think Powell's on Tuesday or Wednesday, if I'm not mistaken, but we have CPI Thursday, we have PPI Friday. So there's a lot of data and whatnot coming out, and potentially, could be a volatile week for the market. So we'll see how Tesla actually closes the weekly, candle. But if Tesla can close essentially, honestly, in my opinion, really, if you can close the week, like I would say, honestly, above 250 ideally, but even like above 247-ish, not bad. I think it's not looking too bad, and you can definitely start making the argument, the fact that we broke out and now are turning this trend line into a support. You can definitely start making those arguments, and there's a chance that Tesla's correction would just be, if that were the case, a sideways correction, and we don't actually come down for quite some time. Honestly, that is a possibility that we just correct sideways, and I still don't think the move higher will happen too soon, I guess. I still think there will be a cool off, but again, cool offs, don't forget, they don't have to be, I'm trying to find where the hell the painting brush is, right? Cool offs don't have to be a move to the downside like this, or even further down like this, right? Cool offs can also just be something like this. We just kind of, zigzag like this sideways for, maybe a couple of weeks or whatever, right? Whatever the case may be. Or maybe we just kind of hug this line and kind of just go down really slowly, nothing like substantial, right? Cool offs, there's different versions of it. So that could be a possibility, especially if we really start turning this trend line back into a support. So keep that in mind. That is a possibility. possibility, right? Just, you know, the reason I say that is because a lot of people, from what I see, are waiting for Tesla to cool off. A lot of people are waiting for that pullback, and everyone's like, all right, well, when it pulls back, I'm loading the boat. Usually when I see that, that implies that, you know what, the market's probably going to, you know, do its thing and just cause as much, you know, fuckery, if you will, as it possibly can, as it just tries to really kind of just punish those people that are either, you know, late chasers, and even people that are just sitting back and waiting for the pullback to, you know, kind of reload the boat, if you will. It's going to really kind of mess with both of them as much as it possibly can. And I think that's what's going to continue happening for at least this week, honestly, right? Now, I did see a post on someone, I should have favorited it, I don't know why I didn't, but there was a post that someone made, I think it was like sometime last week, that they kind of followed the trend, if you will, of Tesla. And what the trend showed, and it did show this move up coming up as well, but it also showed the fact that this move up and this kind of euphoria should end somewhere around this coming Thursday, which is right on CPI day, which will be interesting if that actually has any correlation to each other. But that is a possibility, and it showed us actually correcting after that. I don't think the correction will be big, but if we do actually get like a regular correction and we do move down, I'll talk about where that can be. But as of right now, the main goal for the bears really this week, honestly, is to make Tesla at least close below 250, ideally below like 247 to 245, especially, even more so. Those are the levels the bears really want to break and crack throughout this week and close the weekly candle below. If that happens, I do believe the correction will begin. And if the correction begins, I think without question we'll go up to about 230. I think around 230 is without question going to be the main target to look at. Below that, if we break below 230 and especially break below 220, I think coming back down all the way between 200 and like $11-ish to about 200 itself, roughly, can also be in the cards, right? And we'll come back down looking something like this, right? Come down to this area, turn this old area that was a bit of a support here, bit of a support here, massive resistance here, some resistance here as well, right? And now turn that back into, well, support, right? That could be what could be in the cards. Now, keep in mind, if I go back to the daily chart, let me move this quickly here, go back to the daily chart, right? You know, like I said, most indicators are still looking bullish. I mean, overbought, but still technically bullish. But the stochastic, you can see, is starting to flatten out. It's starting to point down. So if we start getting a stochastic bearish crossover to the downside, so the green crossing the red to the downside, that could be an even further sign that momentum is starting to fizzle out a little bit, right? It's starting to wane a little bit, right? The bulls are, you know, it's like a bullish exhaustion almost, if that makes sense, right? So, you know, that could be another sign that the correction, or at least the cool off, if you will, is imminent. Let's just say that. So that is a possibility. You can see ever since we started this move up, right, we never crossed back down, right? We kept staying above. Even though there were times that looked like it was about to cross, it never fully crossed below the green, below the red, right? Many times it was trying to, but it just couldn't, right? The momentum was too strong. But like I said, if this does start crossing the green below the red, that could be another sign of caution, right? That could be something to kind of, you know, watch out for, right? Just keep that in mind as well, right? I know a lot of people are euphoric. A lot of people are calling for Tesla to go to like $300 per share and whatnot. But again, it just kind of reminds me back when we were all the way down here and Tesla was, you know, go ahead and actually go here quickly. Let me change this back here to visible on time frames, current interval only. There we go. Right. Back when people were, you know, kind of talking about Tesla all the way down in the, you know, 150s, even 140s, right? People were talking about Tesla going back down to 120, 100, even sub 100, right? It feels like it's the same situation, just flipped, right? People were really bearish down here. People kept saying that, okay, we're falling way lower. We're going way lower, way lower, way lower. And instead what happened was, well, we ended up bouncing pretty substantially, right? That could be still, you know, what is in the cards for us here. I want to move this for now, right? That could be what's in the cards for us here right now, just in the opposite, you know, direction, if that makes sense. So just keep that in mind. That could be a possibility. But ultimately, you know, Tesla is still looking pretty decent, right? The fact that we closed green today, that's a good sign, right? You know, it's showing signs. So you can see here, if I zoom in on the 1 hour chart, for instance, right, you can see how we had a lot of back here, we had a lot of pressure, right? A lot of resistance, if you will, selling pressure coming in pretty much as we entered the, you know, 250 to 252 roughly, right? Every time we came up in these areas, we just kept selling down, selling down, selling down. Then we finally broke it on this candle right here today, actually, right? Yeah, it was today, right? Massive breakout on the 1 hour. And then what happened? We came back down to that same level and we turned this level that was, I'll draw like this, maybe it makes it a little bit easier to see, right? But this level that was essentially a resistance back here now turned into a support. So the fact that this happened, you know, there is still some short-term bullishness potentially, right? But again, the way I look at it, because the stochastic on the daily is really close to flipping bearish, Tesla would need to continue this bullish momentum either tomorrow or Wednesday if it really wants to go anywhere near the 260s or 265. That's going to be what I see for now, right? But you can see how it turned all the resistance into now support. So that's a good sign. Short term, that's still a potential good sign. Short term, it shows that, this is just not a stock that, in my opinion, you would look to short just yet, right? It's still looking like the bullish momentum is still there. It's not completely gone yet, and there is still potential for another move a little bit higher. At the very least, back up to the same high that we had today, if not maybe 265. And I said many times, 265, very important level. Why? Because, well, ever since this massive downtrend from all-time highs has started, right? And even you can argue from back here when we were at $300 per share, right? We kind of started zigzagging downwards, right? Over here, kept zigzagging downwards, making lower lows, lower highs, right? The most recent, actual, kind of long-term lower high that we did set, which was right here with this 265 level, right? So the way I look at it is for the long-term trend to be bullish, like I said before, you would want to be breaking above 265. If we break above that, then to me, this really solidifies this move. This really sets the trajectory long-term to be bullish as well. And I think Tesla's looking absolutely phenomenal. I still think it'll pull back, obviously, but the pullback should be less severe, probably, more of a healthy pullback, right? But it'll probably pull back to the 250s, maybe 240s, worst case scenario, if we go straight to 265 and break it. And then from there, I think Tesla will just be buyable. And I think the kind of overall, trajectory long-term should be just bullish unquestionably, because we just broke this high and we set a fresh long-term higher high, which is just a massive bullish change of structure. And I think that's going to be very, very good to see if, of course, it happens. But again, the other side as well, let's say it doesn't happen. Let's say we don't actually move up higher than this. Then the medium term is still bullish, because we did break medium term higher or lower highs, right, on this move above here. Even you can argue above right here, above this 205 level. Remember, I talked about that. Breaking 205 is like a medium-term shift. That's exactly what happened, right? Short-term, I mean, technically bullish, but I would argue it's starting to slowly potentially look bearish, because again, just a very massive rally that is starting to look like it's potentially getting some exhaustion coming in. This is the first candle ever since the rally has begun, all the way from pretty much the 185s ish, right? That has really any actual signs of true selling pressure. The only other candle that was kind of showing some selling pressure was here with that wick at the top, but this is the first one that really has, a very visible kind of half wick almost at the top, right? Definitely showing the sellers really starting to step in, which again, could be a little bit of a sign for concern for the bulls. We'll see how much it actually comes to fruition. But, all in all, what I'm trying to say is the fact that Tesla short-term still has some bullish momentum. The 1 hour, again, like I said, that flip from, resistance to support still shows that it can potentially at the very least come up to, today's high, or depending on when you watch the video, but Monday's high to potentially as high as 265. If we break 265, I think it's very, very bullish. Overall, the trend should be extremely bullish for Tesla long-term. But, underneath 265, technically, there's still some concern for the bulls, right? The long-term thesis, if you will, is still bearish, right? So we'll see how that plays out. But the daily, like I said, also stochastic, almost flipping bearish as well. So we could start drying up, and we could start potentially looking to, reverse this trend a little bit to the downside. Like I said, 230 is the first target, 220, followed by 211, followed by 200. Those are the probably main levels you'd want to be looking for if we really start, losing this pressure, and we lose 247, especially, and really start closing candles below that. That could be concerning for Tesla. But all in all, again, not a stock you should be shorting, in my opinion, right now. The momentum is still strong. There's no obvious sign of a top yet. So, short at your own will, of course. I absolutely am not. In fact, I'm actually entering small bullish positions with some cash secured puts, because I still think the momentum is pretty strong, but I'm not willing to bet it with just straight shares here. I'm willing to sell cash secured puts down in the 230s, for instance, kind of, low 230s, if you will, mid to low 230s, so that if it does come down this week, for instance, they are weeklies, I'll be willing to start, re-entering my positions back there with shares specifically, because I do think that's going to be the first level to potentially start looking for, a reload up, if not lower than that, of course, back to 211 and 210. So anyway, that's kind of what I'm seeing right now. That's kind of what I'm expecting. Let me know what you think down below. Thank you so much for watching. Options flow is kind of all over the place, right? Seeing a lot of option sells, by the way, right? Especially down over here, a lot of option sells, even a lot of them for 220 for September 20th, which is a little bit concerning. I'm not going to lie. So we'll see how that actually plays out as well. But yeah, all in all, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you for the next one. Peace.